There was a real moment of tremendous embarrassment. Even now, when I see Yo-Yo Ma, he still gives me a hard time. That's a musician's nightmare, really. For this particular performance with you, I feel completely relaxed because I know there will be a certain textural sensitivity. Oh,
Well, if there wasn't going to be, there will be now, I promise.
all right, he took the bait.
I'm joined now by the wonderful David Kim, who's the concertmaster of the fabulous Philadelphia Orchestra. David, it's great to see you. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Andrew. Wonderful to be with you and chat.
You're going to be coming to Reading again, I think for the third time in the near future, 6th of March, to play some Mozart with us. And I thought it would be wonderful if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself, about how you got into the violin, when it was you figured out that music was going to be for you, all of that stuff, the basic stuff that we all love to hear about.
You and my therapist. It's a long journey that got me to Philadelphia, which is, of course, the pinnacle of my career or anybody's career, to be concertmaster of this incredible instrument, the Philadelphia Orchestra. It began literally when I was in utero, when my mother was pregnant with me. She was a pianist in her native Korea, and when she learned while she was still in grad school that she was pregnant, she decided, okay, I would love for this child to be a opera singer, but there's no guarantee that he and she would wanted to have a son, and she didn't know, but she said, I'm determined to have a son, there's no guarantee that this child will be born with the instrument in here. So the next best thing, the closest to the human voice, is the violin. When I turned 3, it was the beginning of a long and, I must say, arduous journey.
Wow, 3. I was only just walking by that age, I think. Well, that's fantastic, David. So, are you an only child, or are you?
I am, and that's also part of the grand plan, the scheme. My father wanted more children, and my mother refused. She said this would be such a terrible distraction from David's musical education, and so I am an only child indeed. Would love to have siblings, but I'm a really relational guy. I have lots of friends and dear friends and close friends, and so I consider I have lots of siblings all over the world.
Well, you're an incredibly popular musician, not just as a soloist, but as concertmaster and chamber musician as well. And I know that during this crazy sort of lockdown time, you're out and about where you are able to go. What have you been doing recently?
Well, just a couple of days ago, I got back from Pittsburgh and I was a guest concertmaster with the Pittsburgh Symphony, and they did their first recording session since the pandemic began. And they're preparing a wonderful streaming thing with Manfred Honeck conducting. Exactly what the Philadelphia Orchestra has been doing in bulk. We have been recording a ton through the pandemic. It's very costly and logistically very difficult thing to accomplish, bringing an entire orchestra together, as you know, and trying to be safe and keep everybody comfortable. It was a wonderful week in Pittsburgh. I've been recording a lot with the great Philadelphia Orchestra and just doing a lot of different chamber music, orchestra festival around the country. Knock on wood, have been very careful. Everybody's been safe. No infections.
Well, I'm very proud of what we've been able to do in Reading as well. We've done one streamed concert so far, just a few weeks ago, and this will be our second when you come to town. And we were seen in something like 38 different countries, which is a fantastic achievement for any organization, but we were so thrilled by that. But there must be challenges playing in an orchestra. I just stand on the box and wave my arms and listen to it. So what are the challenges from an orchestral musician's point of view?
First of all, bravo to all Reading Symphony Orchestra colleagues and to you, Maestro, for that was a beautiful concert. I can see why people tuned in from all over the world. It was just done with such care and meticulous quality. As a musician who's been recording a lot, it's just mentally exhausting and stressful. When you're playing with a mask on, it's very different. The first few times I did it, I was very surprised at how much respiration happened that I was not aware of. I thought, oh, it's going to be no problem. I'm going to put a mask on, play the fiddle, no problem. But it was, it required a lot of breathing, and that was also more exhausting in and of itself.
What about the distancing? Is that an issue that has troubled you at all? Because we all have to be like 6 feet away from the next person. And if
Yes.
you're like me, you think that the greatest ensemble is created by people sitting closely together and being able
Agreed.
to feel the body language, the movement, what you can hear musically, all of that.
Also, everybody's playing one to each music stand, not two people on a music stand. So there really is a wonderful distance. I mean, I have to say, as an orchestral musician, there is a wonderful freedom about having your own music stand. With my old eyes, it's great to have the music stand like right in front of me. I can look at, I can hog the music.
Page turns, David, page turns. Are you using a
Well,
pedal?
also, I use pedals and my iPad, so I don't have to touch anything. I don't have to turn. So not only are we distanced when we play, there are some plexiglass shields to block, say, between the winds and the brass and the strings. It depends a lot on two things, the conductor and how the conductor can navigate this kind of anticipation and distance from people who are much further away than normal, like especially like French horns, trombones, percussion. And then also the concert hall has a lot to do with it. If it's a concert hall that is very receptive, then it's pretty doable. But some halls are just a little quirky. Like there's a disconnect from people who are further than 20, 30 feet away. So the people who are close, like the concertmaster, principal players up in the front, we're instantaneous with the maestro. But then we can't jump the gun too much because there's people further back and we have to allow for this kind of sound waves traveling.
It's changed the sort of repertoire we can perform as well. There are no Mahler symphonies happening at the moment. There's no Bruckner going on, certainly not in this country. And so it lends itself much more to classical repertoire of Beethoven, Mozart, which is where we are at the moment, with the smaller orchestrations. Let's move on to our Mozart coming up on the 6th of March in Reading, the Concerto number 4. One of your favorites, I hope?
It is absolutely my favorite Mozart concerto. Mozart wrote 5 concertos, and I think they're all wonderful in their own way, but somehow through history, 3, 4, and 5 have become kind of the staples of violinists' repertoire. In fact, it's even more kind of distilled because when we have auditions for violin positions in the Philadelphia Orchestra, we require everybody to play a Mozart concerto, and now we've made it you must choose either number 4 or number 5. 22 years ago, I played this number 4 D major in my audition when I auditioned to become a member of the Philadelphia Orchestra.
Wow, that long ago. Amazing.
Mhm.
What is it about Mozart then that yields the results that you need to observe in an audition?
Texturally, it's very transparent. There's not a huge orchestra behind you. We did Saint-Saëns concerto once, and there's not this big lower brass section and timpani and all that. It's just very, very small chamber orchestra, cut down orchestra. It's very revealing, and that's why we actually start the first round of the preliminaries with people playing sometimes Mozart concerto with not even a piano accompaniment, literally just naked up there playing alone. It has a way of separating men from boys right away. Like within 20 seconds, we kind of have a good idea of the type of musician, the type of inner strength this musician might have. So many things are revealed in the first 20 seconds.
So there's a purity to the sound and all the technical requirements there that will show you if that person is going to be able to blend with the orchestra or not. Because in the string section, it's compatibility and being able to blend in all of those aspects.
Absolutely. That's not the place where we're seeking to see whether this person has a big muscular sound that they're going to add to the Philadelphia Orchestra. We're actually seeing, well, does this person have the taste, the pedigree to play beautiful Mozart style? And do they have the technicality to play in this transparent way under extreme pressure? That's the job in a nutshell at times. You know, we could be on stage at Carnegie Hall and small ensemble playing some Mozart. At times like those, we're glad that we did our due diligence.
Well, David, the first time I heard you play, you gave a wonderful account of the Tchaikovsky concerto in Philadelphia. And then the first time I think we worked together was the Saint-Saëns concerto that you mentioned. We've done some Mozart since then as well. And from what you've just said, you really are almost exposing yourself on stage by going up there to play Mozart. Is there anything about an approach to a concerto like that you might want to try and pass on to any violinists who are watching or listening?
I think that one has to take into account several things. One is the size of the hall. The other is the sensitivity and the willingness to be flexible of the conductor. As I mentioned just a second ago, Mozart is not the type of solo music where you're showing, the muscle. I, for one, for this performance with you, I feel completely relaxed because I know that there's such sensitivity in the accompaniment, and I don't have to worry about kind of pushing the sound beyond this heavy accompaniment behind me. I know there will be a certain kind of textural sensitivity, and even though the
Well, if
whole,
there wasn't going to be, there will be now, I promise.
oh, all right, he took the bait. But the hall in Reading is wonderful. That old theater is beautiful, and I can create many colors there. And I'm just really looking forward to creating on stage and not really having to worry about projecting to the top of the hall or to the back. We will be creating kind of a chamber music session on our own on stage. Microphones will be around. It'll be really kind of a freeing experience. I know from my experience.
I think it's exactly that. There's not the tension of having a live audience there, and I've noticed this little digression here. I've noticed this from watching soccer games from the UK because the Premier League is all happening, but there are no crowds. So the teams at the top and the teams at the bottom are not feeling the pressure of 50,000 baying fans yelling at them. And it's been this wonderful leveler. So there's so more is happening on an even playing field, as it were. And I think that when we work in a hall under these sort of conditions, circumstances, it allows us to focus so much more on what we know we can do in private, as it were, that doesn't always make it to the concert stage. Let's move on. Those 22 years you've been concertmaster of the Philadelphia Orchestra. Tell us something that might have happened in an untoward fashion. Any bloopers, anything that you can remember where you've all been chuckling underneath your chin rest, but you've had to keep going?
I have a lot, actually. I mean, the usual ones like, wardrobe malfunctions and forgetting to zip up and all, things like that. But there was one that was really a real moment of tremendous embarrassment on my part. And that was we were beginning a big 3-week tour of Asia with a concert in one of the most famous and great concert halls in the world, Suntory Hall in Tokyo. And the first piece of the tour was the Dvorak Cello Concerto with Yo-Yo Ma. And there's a couple of places in the last movement where the concertmaster and the solo cellist have a beautiful duet. It's just so beautiful and songful. The Princess of Japan came. It was just, there were royalty there. People were wearing kimonos. It was just a big deal. And I arrived a couple of days early to Japan to make a visit with some friends, to give a recital, but I was just really jet lagged. And my biggest concern was making sure that I made it on time for that first rehearsal that morning of the concert with Yo-Yo. I made it to the first rehearsal. Then I went out to lunch with my colleagues and friends. We had wonderful like udon and just had a great lunch. And then I went back to my hotel. It was 1:30. I flipped on the television. There was some sumo wrestling on. I just kind of laid down on the bed like, oh, I'll watch some sumo. The next thing I know, the phone is ringing next to my head. The room is pitch dark. I pick up the phone and it's the head of our touring company from Japan. And he yells into the phone, "The concert is going to begin. Come to the hall now." And I looked at my clock, and in Japan, the concerts start early. They start at 7, and it was like 6:59 or something. And I was wearing contacts, and they were like potato chips in my eyes.
Oh,
My
yeah. Oh,
hair was
God.
like all over and the in Suntory, the hall is right below the hotel we stay in. So I ran down the hall and I was banging against the walls. And anyway, I finally got to the stage door, and Japan being Japan, the security guard stopped me. He was like, I need to see your security card. And as I was digging around for the security card, I saw on the TV screen above his head, Yo-Yo
Oh.
walking on stage. Everybody else had moved up one chair. I missed the whole thing.
Oh,
That was probably about 18 years ago, and even now, when I see Yo-Yo Ma, he still gives me a hard time. He'll
I'm
come
sure he
over,
does.
whisper like, are you really awake today?" Like something that's a musician's nightmare really come to
Wow,
life.
wow, wow. And I suppose once it's happened, you never let that happen again.
Well, the
Oh,
orchestra, that night, I think 3 people overslept that concert. I mean, the time difference is crazy. It's like 14 hours. We fly all the way over there. It's so exhausting. We're completely jet lagged. And from that moment on, a couple of things happened. The orchestra instituted a sign-in thing where you have to let the personnel manager know that you're at the hall when you arrive. And then I started doing some research and I came up with a beat jet lag program of my own, which is on my website. So I use it now and I have not really had much jet lag ever since, even flying to China and all over the world.
well, I suspect we're going to be okay in March. The time difference between Philadelphia and Reading is absolutely minimal. And as long as we're all in the hall together, that's going to be fantastic. So, David, this has been a wonderful chat. I'm very grateful to you. Just want to remind everybody who's watching that the concert's going to be streamed from the Santander Performing Arts Center, March the 6th. In the meantime, David Kim, you're looking wonderfully well. Thank you so much for doing this. Can't wait until we're on stage together.
Me too, Andrew. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Great pleasure.